Hello, class. Welcome to Chapter 7, Management and Leadership. And I always start this chapter off because this is an introduction to business, and a lot of students in this class, you might just be right out of high school or you took a couple semesters off, but you still, are fairly young and inexperienced as far as with work experience. Most of you have never managed somebody before because typically you don't just become a manager. You have to work as a lower level, frontline worker for a little bit of time to get some experience and some knowledge before they put you in a position where you're telling other people what to do, and you're providing feedback, and you're making sure the company is running smoothly. Because oftentimes they want somebody who has already worked in the frontline job, because then they know how things, they have a general understanding, so then they can train and teach the incoming employees who would then be doing your previous job. And so basically, what I'm saying is you will eventually be a manager. Eventually when you work in a frontline job for long enough, you're really good at it, and they want you to teach others, how to do that same job. Or the flip side is a lot of you out here, watching this want to make more money. And if you want to make more money, you usually need to take on more responsibilities. And as you take on more responsibilities, those responsibilities tend to be more management in scope, more, working with teams, writing reports, making decisions, changing processes, like how you do something in the company, like changing the way you do it. The manager would be in charge of doing that. Now, it's interesting because a lot of students tell me like, oh, I'm already doing management job functions, but they don't call me a manager at my job. And it could be a couple things. One, maybe it's kind of just, maybe you are doing a few things, but maybe it might not be. I hate to just go ahead and tell my students to say, oh, well, you actually might have a lawsuit on your hands. You probably don't have a lawsuit. Definitely don't do that. And just if you start making a big scene at your job, you could get fired. So just keep that in mind, to don't raise a red flag of like, hey, I've been doing management duties, but I'm not getting paid management money. The better approach in my mind is to approach your manager and just let them know, I've been working here for 6 months. I do my work. I've never missed a day. I don't call in sick. I've been doing these extra duties that in my original job description were not there. Now I'm helping with the schedule. I'm, changing the processes here. And these often are management duties. So would it be possible to consider, a promotion, in my job title and my salary as well? We'll talk a little bit more about that in chapter 11 when we talk about human resources, because this is kind of an HR question as well, which is my job a management job or not? Because you're right, there might be some companies out there that, a company wants to spend as little money as it can and make the most profits as it can. While that might not be ethical, that does happen. So I just hate to say though, to say your company is doing that right now, because I don't know. Each individual company is different, but I'm just simply stating that has happened in the past. And, assessing your current job and your duties would tell you whether or not you're in a, frontline working position or you're in a managerial position. And the amount of money you make in that job should also match the job duties that you're doing. And this leads us back to most of you are going to become a manager because management jobs will often get paid more and you will get promoted throughout your time. Now, I might be telling you this 5 years too early, and you might be saying, I'm not a manager. So just in the future, you will be. So just hold in tight. And then some of you in the class have already been a manager. So this week's discussion post is all on what makes a good manager. What do you think? So I'd love to hear from all of you in the discussion post. But since I'm the only one speaking here, we'll go ahead and move on. We'll save that for the discussion. So non-supervisory, I guess that would be the word that I should have said instead of frontline workers. So a non-supervisory role, which meaning that you don't supervise anyone. You're not doing any kind of managerial duties. So if you're just a barista at Starbucks or you work the cash register, you're a non-supervisory role. The minute you start becoming a supervisory manager, the first, we're going up the pyramid here to the green section. Maybe you become a supervisor. Now maybe you're making schedules now. You have to lock up and open the store, right? Then you get into middle management. This might be something like the division manager. So for those of you that don't know, some Starbucks are managed like multiple locations, and there might be like a regional manager for like 3 different locations. And so that manager is your manager's boss, right? And then it goes all the way to top management. So somewhere like Starbucks, that's going to be your CEO, your COO, and I've listed some here, your CFO, CIO. Another couple terms I wrote down there is CTO and CMO. CTO, Chief Technical Officer, and then CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And I hope many of you aspire to be this one day, but the average age of a C-level executive is probably, you can Google it, but it's got to be way over 40, 50, maybe even, closer to 60 or 70. If they want somebody with with decades of experience, typically, especially with a company like Starbucks or an established Fortune 500 company. Now, if it's a startup company, that may be different. You may have younger CEOs. As you've seen before, people like Mark Zuckerberg, who, how old is he now? I know he's way under 40, so he would be definitely an outlier in a young manager. And so those are the 4 different types of managerial levels. Some companies might not have middle management too. Remember, this isn't necessarily necessary. You might just have top management and then supervisory managers. It also depends on the size of the company as well. So traditionally, managers were kind of this, do this or else, right? Just make sure you clock in on time, make sure you do your job, make sure you're not sleeping on the job, and get done with it. And we're seeing that evolve over time now, that people, I don't know if you ever heard the quote before, but it says, people quit bad managers, not bad jobs. It's really important who your boss is, right? Who you're talking to on the daily basis, who's making your schedule, and who is supervising you. And so the managers today should be equipped with different types of skills. For example, the skill to be able to be collaborative, right? You have much larger teams of people from different backgrounds. Does everyone in the company get along? How is the company culture? Emphasize team and team building. There's no individual person doing their job. At Starbucks, it's the cashier working with the barista, working with the manager. Are you all working together, talking together, or is it each person for themselves, right? I can tell you right now, a well-oiled company, a well-run company where everyone's working in sync with each other, it's just way easier. For example, we're going to get to trust. A company where all the individuals within the company, they trust each other, is going to run a lot better than a company where you don't trust your coworker over here. You don't trust your manager over here. It's more costly, and it will slow down this company, whatever it is. The other one is guide, train, support, motivate, and coach employees, right? We're in an era now where, maybe I'm teaching you some things in this class, but there's specific job duties you still need to learn at a specific job. And does that manager do a good job in explaining and, going slow enough or fast enough, or being able to relate whatever it is you need to do, make it very simple to understand. And then lastly, to be skilled communicators and team players. Yes, communication is key. We have to be, friendly, or else you can get a lawsuit. You have to be able to talk to people and, communicate in a way that makes them feel welcome and makes them feel, part of the company versus, if you just have one way of communicating, it's like my way or the highway. Those type of companies tend to have what they call a revolving door, meaning there's a lot of turnover. A lot of people start the job, but they quit very quickly, right? There's always people quitting. And that oftentimes is because of poor communication skills with management or with the supervisory managers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but this is what the book will break down what a manager does. They plan, they organize, they lead, and they control in that order. Another responsibility that a manager will have to do is hiring and firing. So hiring, typically a manager has a vacancy. They're shorthanded. They're not able to keep up with the demand of whatever they're doing. So they say to their boss, or maybe they're able to do it, to say, hey, we need to hire somebody else to make up for this. We're at capacity. We need more hands. So typically the manager will work with HR and work on making the job description itself. And then once the job description is made, it's actually the manager who will typically interview that particular employee. And so it's the manager's job to then sit through interviews and look at people's resumes and talk to them, ask them questions about how good of a fit they will be for the job, and actually make recommendations for then the final approval for who will get hired. So part of the manager's job also, from when they go from a non-supervisory position to a supervisory position, is to actually build out that staff and select that particular staff member as well. So you see that the job becomes a lot more than just doing and making the product or service in which you were doing prior to becoming a manager. Last thing I want to speak about in this chapter is what a leader does. And leaders communicate a vision and rally others around that vision. They establish corporate values, promote corporate ethics, embrace change, stress accountability and responsibility. What I would say about this is that as a leader, as a manager, everyone below you is looking at you. Whether they like you or not doesn't matter. They are still looking at you as the role model. So whatever you do, they're going to see that behavior as what is right and what is wrong. So if I'm a manager and I take a 30-minute break when my break is only supposed to be 15 minutes long, or if I'm a manager and I'm checking my cell phone every 10 minutes and it's not work related, you're going to show your non-supervisory employees that type of behavior is okay. And so these things about ethics and values and you yourself as a manager being able to change, everyone is watching you. So it's important that you be the role model because they are going to mimic that same behavior.